Potatoes originate from South America, specifically from the Andes. About 10,000 years ago, in the area of today's border between Peru and Bolivia, people began domesticating this plant and using its underground tubers for food. These tubers, thanks to their high starch content, were rich in calories. Over time, potato cultivation spread throughout the Andean region, and people learned to prepare them in various ways: baking, boiling, or mashing. Moreover, local residents discovered that if potatoes were frozen for several consecutive nights, then squeezed to remove moisture, and sun-dried, they could be stored for years. This helped combat hunger during crop failures. In the 15th century, Spanish conquistadors arrived in the region and encountered the potato, called papa in the Quechua language. Later, this name transformed into the Spanish patata, probably due to confusion with sweet potatoes grown by the Taino tribes in the Caribbean and called batata. Perhaps the change also occurred to avoid offending the Pope, who is also called papa in Spanish. Anyway, the plant was brought to the Canary Islands, from where it spread throughout the Spanish Empire. At first, Europeans were suspicious of the new plant because it resembled the poisonous nightshade. Therefore, potatoes were mainly used as animal feed, and to feed the starving and sick, especially in Seville's hospitals. In 1585, during the war between Spain and England, sailor Francis Drake raided Spanish colonies in America, including Cartagena de Indias. He probably captured some potatoes there and brought them to England. Some tubers reached Ireland, where they quickly began to be cultivated on a large scale to feed the island's poor population. Possibly, Basque fishermen who frequently stopped in Ireland during their expeditions to the fish-rich waters of North America were the first to introduce them. In any case, fishermen and sailors were among the first to consume potatoes, as they stored well and were convenient for long voyages. On the old continent, interest in this crop was mainly shown by botanists fascinated by exotic plants. They spread potatoes by sending tubers to each other. Botanist Carolus Clusius, during his stay in Frankfurt, grew potatoes and sent samples to his colleagues throughout Europe. Gradually, potatoes became more popular, especially in northern Italy, where they were called tartufoli, little truffles. Peasants began allocating plots near grain fields for potatoes since they were easy to grow, and, being underground, suffered less from theft and marauding armies. Another important advantage of potatoes was that they could be eaten immediately without preliminary processing, unlike wheat, which needed to be ground into flour for bread making. Meanwhile, Portugal began growing potatoes in its colonies in India, and even introduced them to Macau, from where they possibly reached China. Although there's a version that potatoes were introduced from the north via the Silk Road. Anyway, they quickly adapted and spread throughout the Qing Empire, where the population was rapidly growing. In Europe, King Frederick II of Prussia, later nicknamed the Potato King, launched large-scale agricultural development projects on his lands to combat hunger. He was among the first rulers to actively encourage potato cultivation. According to legend, he ordered potato fields guarded during the day to attract peasants' attention and spark their interest in the plant. At night, he left the fields unguarded so people could steal tubers and start growing them themselves. Meanwhile, the 7 Years' War was raging in Europe. Frenchman Antoine Parmentier was captured by the Prussians, who fed him almost exclusively potatoes. He realized the importance of this product and, after his release, began actively promoting it in France, where potatoes were still banned due to the mistaken belief that they caused leprosy. After several years of research, Parmentier convinced King Louis XV to change state policy. Potato cultivation now became encouraged. It quickly gained popularity and began to be prepared in various ways. In Paris, on the Pont Neuf Bridge, street vendors were the first to think of dipping sliced potatoes in boiling oil, inventing fries or French pommes frites, which quickly became popular in the capital. However, Belgium also claims this invention, where, according to legend, 100 years earlier, during a harsh winter when the river froze, fishermen deprived of fish began frying potato slices. Anyway, fries became Belgium's national dish. Thanks to its affordability, nutritional value, and long shelf life, The potato became a staple food in Europe and played an important role in the Industrial Revolution, feeding workers. Production rapidly increased throughout the continent, reaching even remote areas of Russia, where authorities tried to forcibly introduce its cultivation but faced serious peasant resistance. In the 1840s, late blight, a disease destroying potatoes, struck northern Europe. Ireland was particularly hard hit, with a third of arable land devoted to this crop. The country's 8 million population experienced a catastrophic famine that claimed over 1 million lives in a few years and forced another 2 million to emigrate, mainly to Britain, North America, and Australia. To this day, the island's population hasn't recovered to 1840 levels. From the late 19th century, European settlers introduced potatoes to tropical Africa, but its cultivation mainly spread in mountainous areas. After World War II, mechanization and oil industry development allowed cultivating larger areas with less labor. Worldwide potato production rapidly increased, and in 1993, China became the world's largest producer. The country now focuses on potatoes as a means of food security. Its main advantage over rice is that it requires 4 times less water to grow. Today, about 375 million tons of potatoes are grown annually worldwide. India ranks second in production, while Ukraine long held third place. However, due to the war, its harvests sharply declined. Finally, the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations views potatoes as a key element of global food security and hopes to double its